Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining us on Go Big or Go Home. I'm Old Man Troy, joined by the spectacular youngster Kevin Cunningham, a.k.a. Kid Cuddy on Twitter. Youngster, not a lot going on in the Big Ten, so this might be a little different show today. But before we get into that, how are things in the great state of Florida? Thanks for sending your weather up my way. Sucks.
I was talking to my mom, actually, earlier today, Troy, and she was saying, like, it's just like Florida. It's been super hot. It's been kind of rainy, but super hot, muggy, humid, all that crap, which today in Florida, actually, it's a little cooler, kind of, because it's like in the 80s. Because it's just been like cloudy and rainy and drizzly all day. So not beautiful, but nothing
no, it rains.
Going on.
It cools down while it rains, right?
Right.
And then after it's done raining, it gets hotter.
Yeah, exactly.
So like it's hot, then it rains, and you're like, oh, the rain. Oh, thank God. And then it gets hotter, and you're like, oh, let it rain again. Let it rain again. I'm like looking in the sky for dark clouds. Because youngster, I don't like the heat. I don't like the humidity. And it has nothing to do with my car not having a driver's side window that goes down or an air conditioner. Even if I had that, I don't like being in this hot weather. I am a spring and fall guy. I'm not a summer guy.
Yeah, I've got full AC working in my car, and my windows go down. And when I just in the afternoon say I have to go to the grocery store for 5 minutes, just getting to the grocery store, which takes like less than 5 minutes really for me, my back will basically like start sweating. Like I can feel it on my shirt. Just getting in the car, driving 2 minutes, and getting into the store. Like I can feel it already. It's ridiculous.
And so you can imagine what an hour and 20-minute drive doing this show with the windows up has to do. Yeah, we're not going to share that on the air. We're going to leave that up to the imagination. But with nothing going on in the Big Ten, youngster, I mean, absolutely nothing. We've decided we're not going to talk about recruiting classes. We're not going to talk about previews yet.
Yeah.
I mean, that we'll spend more than enough time on that in a few weeks.
Yeah.
Because we're getting close. I mean, we're already in July. Yeah. We're getting really close, and we'll do our preview show. But the Women's World Cup happened.
Like a month and a half away from football starting, serious, legitimate regular season football. So
yeah, and then we'll have some stuff.
Yeah.
But since we're both soccer guys, Women's World Cup happened, so we're going to talk about the Women's World Cup on Go Big or Go Home. I think it'll be a good show, and I'm going to tell you this, Kevin. The women, it's not surprising. You know where I was with this. This team was better than 15. I expected them to win the World Cup. Yeah. And to be honest, the game on Sunday, to me, was actually kind of boring. I thought the U.S. dominated the game. I really did.
I agree.
It was not as exciting as any of the other games. Like the Spain game was more exciting than this one.
Yeah.
And the Netherlands had some chances.
More exciting too.
Yeah, here's the thing. I expected them to win. And then I'm not disappointed that they won. But all of a sudden this morning on the way to work, all I'm hearing about is equal pay. Equal pay. Equal pay. Equal pay. You know what, people? I think Megan Rapinoe is a great player. She needed to keep her mouth shut. Everyone needed to keep their mouth shut about equal pay. You're on the world's biggest stage. I understand what they're trying to do. Wrong place. Wrong place to do it. Enjoy the World Cup victory. Now, I'm not saying I'm against equal pay. I'm saying the way they went about this should have been about how great this team was, how they won back-to-back tournaments, what they're going to do, because this is a young team, Kevin. There's some old people on this team, but there's such a young nucleus. They could three-peat in the World Cup in 4 years. Is that being talked about today? Nope. Everything that comes up is about equal pay. It's ruined my buzz for the women winning the World Cup. And I'm a soccer guy, and I'm turning it off. I'm turning World Cup soccer talk off on my radio, Kevin, because I don't want to hear it right now. Now, we're going to get into it a little bit. I'm just perturbed the way that it came about. and I'm sitting here hearing about it during the game. I don't want to hear about it during the game. I want to watch the women destroy the Netherlands and win their second World Cup in a row and their fourth overall. But no, we can't go there. We've got to have the equal pay go out. So I'm going to tell you what, I'm not real happy right now. So we'll get into it about the equal pay thing, Kevin, but I don't know if that makes sense to you. My buzz was ruined for the U.S. winning this game. So if that's what they wanted to accomplish, I'm not real happy about it. You went out and played and won because you want equal pay. Well, that's kind of how I'm feeling right now, and it's kind of disturbing to me. I'm going to turn it over to you before I really get worked up about it.
I think that, first of all, you're in the minority, and I'm not to the point where you are, where I'm not watching, listening about the Women's World Cup and about the U.S. and what they did. And I'll say this, though, that I'm with you 100%, and it has nothing to do, like you said, in my perfect world, of course, the women's national team gets paid as much as the men's national team does. Of course, that'd be great. But, and like you said, we'll get into it, the specific details on our thoughts on it. But I guess just overall to kind of equate it to something, it's also, it's not, for me anyway, it's not a men-women thing. It's not a gender thing, because with you, I want to watch the soccer game. I want to hear about soccer. I want to, after the game, hear the full diagnosis of exactly what happened, because I'm not a full soccer aficionado that knows everything. I can watch, I can understand what teams are trying to do in certain stages of the game and whatnot, and I can get a feel for what the U.S. is doing, how early they pull back. If they are up 2-0, do they pull back a bit and sit with 5 defensive backs in the 65th minute or not? So I can understand that stuff, and I want to hear more about that during the game, after the game, as opposed to stuff like equal pay. But to kind of equate it to something, to me it's the same as like Colin Kaepernick. And if he gets on the football field and he's a starting quarterback in the league, and I have nothing against Colin Kaepernick, I have nothing against Megan Rapinoe, and nothing against equal pay, men, women, but I don't want to hear about Nike and shoe deals and politics during the football game or after the football game in terms of analysis. I don't care. I want to watch Colin Kaepernick play football and how a defense stops him or how he explodes for 120 yards on the ground. That's what I want to see. I don't care about Colin Kaepernick and the politics. I don't care about Megan Rapinoe and the U.S. women's national team and equal pay during the game. So that's what it is to me. And I think that's kind of what you're going toward, is you want to hear about actual soccer, the game itself.
Yes, sir.
So
yes, sir. Now I want to see if Trump invites him to the White House, because she already said she's not going.
Right.
See, things like that, I mean, you just need to keep your mouth shut. I think she's a great player. I mean, and to be honest, so here's the thing. You want some analysis, Kevin? That penalty kick, that goalkeeper was hoping she was going to strike it down the middle. The goalkeeper didn't move. Normally a goalie will pick a side. And if you look at how she struck that ball, had that goalie moved to her left, she saves it.
No,
the goalie didn't move. It was not a perfect PK by any means. She struck it hard, but the goalie played one of those, well, I'm not going to pick a side because this is your third PK in the tournament.
Yeah.
And you haven't won right down the middle yet, so now I'm just going to stand here, because if you go down the middle, I'll just block it. And to me, I've been in that situation. I played a little backup goalie. You, as a goaltender, you know what you're going to do before they kick. And you're pretty much on an island. A penalty kick, when it's saved, it's awesome. I mean, even as a former player and a coach, I mean, as a penalty kick taker, which I was at times, you're expected to make 100%. You know where you're going. The goalie has no idea where you're going. You've got a huge goal. It's not as easy as it sounds, though. I've missed before. I've pushed it wide. I've had the goalkeeper make a great save. I've hit the post. That strike she had was not a perfect PK. Go back and watch it. It's like 5 feet away from the goaltender.
Yeah.
The second goal that was scored was a beauty.
Oh, yeah.
And it was
from a
thing
Badger.
of beauty.
From a Badger.
Exactly.
There you go. Big 10 tie.
Woo. Yeah, see, we can relate it in. So it sounds like I'm all like piss poor on the U.S. women's national team, and I'm not. Again, I'm just frustrated that you've got to mix something in our society with a game that I love. I literally love soccer. Played it my whole life, coached it. I love it. Like, my wife is trying, like, we got to go. I'm like, we're not going anywhere till the game's over. So whatever we're doing, we're not going anywhere. And again, Kevin, though, when I was watching the game, it actually got to a point where I thought there was some sloppy play by the U.S. And I never really thought the Netherlands had an opportunity to win this game. They had some chances. And what they did is they changed their formation back to a 4-4-2. And what they were doing is they were trying to defensively frustrate the U.S., which they did in the first half.
Yeah.
They did it. And then they were trying to basically pick their moments to attack. And when they did that, they had numbers. They had some numbers.
Right.
They just couldn't finish. And I've been in that situation, so I know how you like it when I relate things to this. I had teams that were probably in a similar situation, playing against better teams. And so I would drop, and there was a time when I played with two sweepers, so I played 5 in the back, and I set one guy up top, and I played with a box in the middle, because I wanted to push everything outside, and I figured we're really strong in the air. Let them play it on the flank, and let them cross it in, because I think we'll win most of those 50-50 balls. Then, if we can control or get a steal, we can try to attack with a breakaway and see if we can punch one in. And it wasn't giving in to the white flag. It was giving in to, this team is 10 times better than we are. How can we beat them? If we play them straight up man-to-man, we're going to get annihilated. And the guys bought into it. We ended up losing the game, similar to what happened to the Netherlands. You just getting those opportunities for breakaways and getting odd man rushes, they're far and few between. And when you get them, you have to finish. And if you don't, you're just going to keep getting the ball knocked around, and eventually a more talented team is going to find the back of the net. And so I think once that PK was given, I think that took the sails out of the Netherlands. It took the sails out. And to be honest, I saw, the Netherlands during the game arguing with the referee. It was the right call. The Netherlands player did not get the ball. Her cleat was up under her armpit. That was actually, we talked about having review. If there was no review in this, that would not have been a penalty kick.
Right.
So the review actually got it right. And my last comment on this game, Kevin, that referee was like a deer in headlights. She was pretty inconsistent during the game. Like, there were some things going on. I'm like, why didn't you call that? Now you're going to let that play on? Oh, and then the PK. I mean, you got to remember, though, at full game speed, that is a tough call, especially the position of the center referee. But even before then, I thought this referee, and I've seen her ref a few of the other games, so it's not like she's a rookie at it. She just seemed to be like a deer in headlights in this game. And it wasn't just like she was against the U.S. or against the Netherlands. She just, to me, had a bad game. Letting things play on, calling things, and I'm like scratching my head going, glad I'm not coaching this game. I'd probably be off my bench having a little talk with the referee. But, there's a few insights to me, Kevin, about the game, and I know that's what you wanted, so I gave it to you. So what do you have to add to what I said?
Nothing really schematically. I thought against France in particular. I've seen the U.S., like I said before, kind of, that when they're up even 1-0 or 2-1, and then it turns to like the 65th minute and they just sit with 5 in the back, or they just clearly go into defensive mode, or they'll start taking it into the opposing team's corner with like 10, 12 minutes left in the game, and then you add stoppage time on top of it. They didn't seem as complacent. They didn't seem as defensive-minded once they were up 2-0 even. And again, I don't know if that was the Netherlands just somewhat giving up in a sense, not fully giving up, but like you said, if you go up 2-0 in the World Cup and it's the 70th minute and you're going against what you know is the more deeper, more talented team overall, and you have to pick your spots, and when you do get those opportunities, you have to capitalize on them. If you're down 2-0 at that point with 20 minutes left, it's like you can get the wind out of your sails a bit. So maybe that was it. I don't know, but that's basically my last analysis talking point of it. I don't think I have really anything else from a soccer perspective. I think that, like I said, this game was not as interesting as I didn't see the Spain game at all. I saw the U.S. a couple times in group play. For stints, I definitely saw all of France. I saw part of the England game. I thought those games were more interesting, really.
I flat out told you I thought this game was boring.
Yeah, but
I really did.
Overall,
there was a couple chances for the Netherlands. There was a couple breakdowns in the back by the U.S. and they needed to capitalize. Had they capitalized, I thought the game would have been a little more interesting. Yeah. And had that PK not happened, then I think you really get an interesting game because now you're still 0-0. And the Netherlands were hanging in there with their strategy for that game. But you could just tell the U.S. was much better than the Netherlands. But hey, congratulations to the Netherlands being runner-up in the World Cups. Nothing to go home and pout about. I mean, they had a good run.
Yeah.
But Kevin, I'm just going to throw this out quickly. The men played in the all-important Gold Cup and lost to Mexico 1-0. And if you remember on our radio show on Saturday, what did I say might happen?
You said they would lose to Mexico, and I said they would beat Mexico. So you were correct on that, and I watched 4 hours of soccer on Sunday, which is, I mean, unless it's men's World Cup, I'm not watching 4 hours of soccer on any given day, but that's how big kind of these games were from a national perspective for U.S. soccer. So I enjoyed it wholeheartedly.
The men still have a lot of work to do, Kevin. They've and there's a while before the World Cup, but they've really got to get it together. I mean, I see a lot of talent. It's just I don't see a lot of team play. And if you look on the women's side, go ahead.
That first half, I was going to say, I thought they looked like basically the better team in the first half. They looked good. They looked like they could have scored easily 2 goals. They looked good in the first half. The second half, clearly you could see Mexico was the better team. So the U.S. just didn't capitalize in the first half, and then it bit them in the butt, really, as far as the final result goes. But I was impressed by the first half. Obviously, you want to see a goal go in, but there was like a header at one point that beat the keeper, but another defender got in the back and stopped it right at the line, so it wasn't a goal, and they defended it off perfectly. It was like, my God, how much, not luck, but, how much more of an opportunity could you possibly have to beat the header with a perfect, or beat the goalie with a perfect header, and then a defender stopped it perfectly right before it goes in the goal.
Good defense.
Yeah, absolutely. But, the U.S. had multiple opportunities in the first half. Second half, you could tell Mexico was the better team.
So I brought that up quickly, not only just to mention that, but now we're talking men, we're talking women.
Yeah.
And so now we can get to, and I'm not even going to rant. We're going to get into the equal pay thing, since now that's the elephant in the room. So we're going to saddle up the elephant youngster, and we're going to ride the elephant around the room. I mean, it's out there. Again, it ruined my buzz for what should have been a wonderful weekend. But now that it's out there, we got to talk about it. And I coached in college. I understand Title IX, and people want to compare it to Title IX and blah, blah, blah. So there's 2 things on this. And I was listening to the radio. I was listening to Amy Lawrence this morning. And I didn't even divulge into it after the game because I told you, Kevin, I didn't want to hear about it. But I listened a little bit this morning. Amy Lawrence brought up a good thing, and I turned it. And it wasn't that she was against the equal pay, her thing, and I didn't hear it all. So I'm just going to tell you the little snippet that I heard and what I thought was interesting, and I may look at it later. The women signed a collective bargaining agreement, Kevin, just like every other league.
Yeah.
That actually dictates their salary.
Right.
They signed it. They signed it. So guess what? If you signed an agreement, it's like the NFL Players Association. You signed your agreement. Now you have to play it out. Next time that it's up for a signing, don't sign it if you don't want to.
Right.
So when I heard that, that's when I turned it off completely, youngster. When I heard that there's a collective bargaining agreement that the women signed, I swore in my car, and I turned the radio station and put some music on. Because I'm like, why is this now even? Why are you complaining then? You sat there and signed a document that tells you what your salary will be. You knew what it was going to be. So now what? Guess what? You really need to be quiet until the next collective bargaining agreement date comes up. Then, you want to talk about equal pay? There you go. There's your platform. So I guess that's where my real beef comes in, Kevin, is that there is a signed agreement for what the women are going to make. Is it right? No. Do I think the women should get paid like the men on the U.S. men's national team? Yes, I do. Are they much better than the men? Yes, they are.
Right.
But it comes down to you signed the agreement.
Yeah.
So wait until the next one to get all this crazy hoopla in the media. I don't even know when the next bargaining agreement date is. That's why I said I want to look into it later.
Yeah.
I'm going to turn it back over to you.
So I've got a few things with this. I tweeted about it because it was so prevalent. Talking shows, just on TV, on social media. Like I said, I tweeted about it, and it's like
it's on local news in Pittsburgh, Kevin. Sports local news in Pittsburgh is talking about equality and equal pay.
Right.
ABC World News now. When I turned it on this morning to drink my coffee and enjoy the news, no, I got to hear about it again. I'm done. I'm sick of hearing about it. We're going to talk about it today. I'm going to look into it a little bit. We may talk about it on a radio show. But, man, as you can tell, I'm getting all worked up about it.
Yeah. No, I want to talk about it on our other show, for sure. But my whole thing with this is that, like you said, they signed an agreement, and basically, from what I've read, correct me if I'm wrong, but basically you're going into a FIFA World Cup, and, okay, this is the amount of revenue that's going to be generated for this entire World Cup. Let's say it's $100 million. It's not, but say it's $100 million. And you say, okay, players' wages are going to be compensated by 7% of the revenue. So I'm not going to do the math in my head, but so, okay, that's allocated to all the teams that participate in the World Cup. And again, like Troy said, you sign that agreement ahead of time, and boom, here we go. So at the end of it all, you get paid $55,000. Just throwing a random number out there. Well, okay, that's what you signed to. So just because the men make 95 as opposed to the women making 55, it's just part of the agreement you signed to ahead of time.
And I'm going to jump in here, youngster.
Yeah.
I'm going to jump in here because when you look at the U.S. men's team and the U.S. national women's team, clearly domestically, they're better, and they're probably more well-known than any of the men in the United States. But when you go on a national scale, the Women's World Cup, comparative to the Men's World Cup,
right,
I don't even think the women are going to scratch the surface.
No, it's not even close.
You've got Brazil. You've got Argentina. You've got dominant world power in men's soccer. In women's soccer, you got 2 or 3 teams. It's not going to be as fruitful as the men's tournament.
Right.
And I think FIFA, out of the kindness of their heart, increased the player pool. I mean, these things, like you said, Kevin, we're all set based on revenue. And my understanding is FIFA increased the player payout pool. And again, I don't have all the facts. I don't have all the numbers. You have more than I do. You had a chance to research it. I didn't. But part of this is the women have to understand. Okay, the men suck the poo-poo when it comes to the World Cup. They're bad. You're great in the world. But the Women's World Cup does not scratch the surface for the Men's World Cup when it comes to world popularity.
Yeah.
The ratings in the U.S. may have been unbelievable, Kevin. They may have been unbelievable.
Right.
What were the ratings in Argentina?
Exactly.
What were the ratings in Russia?
That's
probably not as good as the men's.
Right. Unfortunately, and again, this is to what you signed to, and this is why the men's team makes more than the women's team does, is because the men's team can get knocked out as soon as possible. The women's team can win the whole thing. You don't get bonuses based on, at least as far as I know, how far you go. It's based on revenue for the whole World Cup, which, again, like you said, what are the TV ratings and how much ad revenue are you generating from Argentina in the Women's World Cup? Probably not much. For the Men's World Cup, you're generating tons.
Billions.
Tons and tons. And so that's why the men get more, is because it's just involved in the whole World Cup itself, and you say, okay, here's what we make, here's what you agreed to, 7%, 13%, 6%, 10%, go to the players' wages. Doesn't matter if you go to the World Cup final or you lose in group play and you get annihilated 13-0 every single game. Thailand's women's team gets paid, I believe, as much as the women's team does for the U.S. I believe that's true. Now, just from the World Cup, from endorsements and ads and stuff like that play in America featuring these women, they'll get paid more. But just from wages, as far as the World Cup is concerned, I believe it's 100% equal as far as Thailand and the U.S. women's team, just based on payout for the World Cup itself. Again, ad revenue from, Alex Morgan being on a commercial that airs here, yeah, she'll get extra money for that. But so that's why, is because it just comes down to who is watching the games. And if 100 million people are watching the Men's World Cup and 20 million people around the world are watching the Women's World Cup, it's hard for there to be equal pay unless you agree to, hey, we get 50% of the wages for the World Cup if you're the women, and the men agree to 10%. Then maybe you might have equal pay. But that's just not how it is. So unfortunately, that's the difference maker, is it's just based on ratings and popularity, and that's why Major League Lacrosse in this country does not, you can't play Major League Lacrosse as a man in this country and make the same potentially as you can in the NBA or the MLB or hockey or football, because the ratings just aren't there. The league is not generating that type of money for Major League Lacrosse.
That's a good point, Kevin.
It has nothing to do with gender. It's just based on rating and revenue. How much money is the league, is the World Cup bringing in? And yeah, you sign your deal, but 7% for wages for the men for the World Cup is not going to be the same as 7% for the women signing for the World Cup. Because again, the Men's World Cup just brings in hundreds of millions more viewers and ad revenue than the Women's World Cup does. That's the difference. It's not fair, because like you said, the women deserve to get paid more. They go further. They are much better. And people also talk about how in this country, this is my last point, how in this country the U.S. women's national team games get higher ratings than the men's national team does in games. And I believe that. Like, this Women's World Cup run has gotten huge exposure. I don't disbelieve that at all. But again, it just comes down to the World Cup as a whole, how much revenue does it bring in? And across the world.
Well, Kevin, and it's very similar to the WNBA and the NBA. A WNBA player is not going to make max contracts like in the NBA. And it has nothing to do with them being a woman. It has to do with the league not generating revenue and owners not having $55 million a year to pay a player.
Yeah.
Would they if they could in that league? An owner doesn't really want to pay that. But if it was generating the same type of revenue as the NBA, then those salaries could be a little bit higher.
Especially the NBA, you have to, like the Knicks have to pay their players. I'm just giving an example. Say the cap is $120 million. You have to pay your players $100 million at the minimum. The league forces a minimum for owners to pay their players in any given season. That's why they sign 7 guys to 2-year deals for 10 years for $10 million a year. They're not worth that, but if you're the Knicks, you have to spend money on someone. So, hey.
No, otherwise you get fined.
In New York. Yeah.
What is it, like one, I don't even know what it is, but what is so much percentage for every dollar you're under the floor, right?
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, basically every team hits the floor. Every team hits the floor somehow. But that's why you see some guys like Danny Green make, and this isn't a good example, but that's why Danny Green will get overpaid is because, we'll pay you $15 million a year if you're the Lakers, but if you're the Pistons and you're trying to compete a little bit, and you're not going to throw $20 million a year at Danny Green because you want to spend your money efficiently.
So, Kevin, I'll take this topic I will take it now just domestic. So Let's put the World Cup aside. So now when you look at it, I think that the women do have some kind of argument locally. And when I mean locally, I'm talking United States. Again, I didn't look into everything that's involved here, and there's probably more that I need to learn. But when it comes to should the women get the same training facility, should they have all the same? Yes. When it comes to United States, when you're looking at both these teams in America, that United States women team generates more popularity for soccer than the men do. And we've talked about why. So when it comes to all these things, training facilities and things that go on in the United States, you know what? They should. It should all be equal there. It really should.
It should, but I'll be unpopular here. It shouldn't because of what the Women's World Cup is going to generate, and maybe that's the wrong way to look at it. Because the numbers can grow and they can equal the men. Maybe if you do increase, training facility stuff, but just looking at it like purely World Cup this year, women's versus World Cup, the last time the men made it, should you spend as much money on the women's game as the men's game? If you want to make it equal, yeah, you should. Yeah, you should. But from a business perspective, do you put $100 million into the women's game as opposed to the men? If you know you're going to bring in more money on the men's side, that's the issue. That's the real problem, is it has to make sense budget-wise to put that much money into the women's game, knowing that it's probably not in the very near future going to equal what $100 million into the men's game and how much that would bring you back. That's the real issue, in my opinion.
Well, and again, Kevin, you brought up the World Cup, and I'm talking about facilities in the United States, and I'm talking about things with that women's team there. When you're looking at it, because I heard that come up a couple times, and again, I turned it every time. So, I mean, shame on me for not listening through everything. But when it comes to things that are outside of the salary, when it comes to training facilities and things like that, I agree. Should the women be able to have the same type facilities as the men? I do believe that, Kevin. When it comes, though, like you said, the revenue comes down to revenue, and everything is based off revenue. My salary, where I work full-time during the day, I get paid a commission. My base salary is poo. It's terrible.
Uh-huh.
If I want to pay my bills, I've got to bring more revenue into the company. And when I bring more revenue into the company, I make more money. That's just the way that the world goes. And it's the same if you're salaried. Every position is based on a budget, and I know this from being in charge of a school. You've got a budget, you've got a salary. At the end of the year, when you look at cost of living increases, okay, it's 1.5%. I'm going to increase the salary, 1.5% or whatever it is. Well, I can't just give you money. I got to find that money somewhere. So what am I going to do? Where am I going to get this money? Is it going to be from more enrollment? Is it going to be from cutting money here? There's a lot of things involved outside of salary. And to go back to my budgetary days when I was preparing budgets, salary was a pretty important piece. And I don't want to say you try to skim the salary. You want to pay people fairly, But if the numbers don't work, the numbers don't work.
Right.
Like, would I have loved to give everybody a 10% raise? Oh, sure I would have. But
Right.
where the heck am I finding that money?
Yeah.
At the end of the spreadsheet, my budget has to match. Income has to equal revenue. It has to. And if I'm paying all of these employees 10 times more than they're worth, but I don't have any revenue coming in to support it, I can't pay them. Well, I can, but the school would have went under. I would have got fired.
Right.
That's the way that it works.
Yeah.
So again, Kevin, in philosophy, I understand where they're going with this, and I'm done because we could go and we could take this probably for another hour. It's not even our Go Big show. So I'll just recap what I said. I'm just frustrated because I don't think this was the platform to bring it up. I didn't want to hear about it. And if you're not happy with your pay, especially after I heard about the collective bargaining agreement, that's when you bring it up. That's when you bring it up. Not in the middle of the World Cup. It took away all of my fun watching the Women's World Cup. Every time I heard about it. And all the politics involved. It's a world stage. You got 1 billion people watching. Just play soccer, please. Just play soccer. That's all I wanted. And then when it comes to the pay, Kevin, dollars at the end of the day. You brought it up, budgetary-wise. It's got to make sense. But when it comes to facilities, I think you can improve facilities. I think you can do things like that. But on the salary end, that is all on income-driven revenue.
Yeah.
You work, Kevin. You said you're looking for a new job right now. When you go out for a job and you're applying for these jobs, they're going to give you a salary, and it is relevant to what that company is making and what they feel that position is worth in generating revenue to that company.
Yeah.
That's the way that the world works. So that's all I got. How do you want to finish it up, Kevin? Give your last resounding thoughts, and then we can go, because my blood pressure is hotter than the temperature outside right now.
Like I said before, it's not just play soccer because you're a woman. It's just play soccer because that's what's put in front of you, and it just isn't the stage. And the same goes for Colin Kaepernick, and it's not just because you're the quarterback you are. It's not because you're African American. It's just we're here to watch football. I think that's what Troy is saying. And for me, I share
That's
the
exactly what I'm saying, Kevin. And here's the thing. If Pelusic would come out and say something while the men were playing in the Gold Cup about whatever, I would have had the same outcry. I just want to watch you play. I just want to watch you play. I don't give a crap what's going on the other side of the universe. I don't care what's going on outside of that field. Honestly, Kevin, when I watch that soccer as much as you and I do, as busy as you and I are, when I sit down to watch a sporting event, I'm there to relax and get entertained and to watch a game. Not worry about all the other things. If I want to worry about all the other things, I'll sign into Twitter and I'll sign into Facebook. There. I got all the drama I need right there. I don't need it when I'm watching a game. I don't. Okay, I'm done. Continue.
Lastly, I'm with you. I don't need it either. But I'm glad that she feels, Rapinoe in particular, she feels she has the platform to do that. Like, I'm glad that she feels she can be heard about it. Because I think, 8 years ago, 12 years ago, 16 years ago, she wouldn't even bring it up if she were on the team then, and felt the same exact way because she knows that it's not as popular as it is today. So I'm glad that it is more popular, and she feels like she can, at least. So I'll say that on a positive note. And again, we both agree they deserve to be paid more than the men do. It's just budgetary-wise and money-wise and revenue-wise, it's just that's where the issue comes in. But again, like you said, once it comes to signing that piece of paper and determining how much wages you collect from the next FIFA World Cup in terms of percentages go, that's where you can make the difference. So we'll see then. But like you said, Troy, we've got more research to do as far as knowing everything. But, I thought it was an interesting show that everyone is talking about right now in the sports world.
I wonder if this women's equality is going to carry over into Argentina. Do you think the Argentina women's team is going to go to their federation and say we deserve equal pay as the men in Argentina? I don't think so. I mean, it goes back to your point. The men's game, as poor as the U.S. is in soccer, and that's what we're basing this on. We live in the U.S. Worldwide, though, the World Cup, I mean, people die in other countries when their team loses. I mean, literally, people die when they screw up in a World Cup. Like, the country shut down, Kevin, for a month. That's what it's like. In the United States, we go about our game. Oh, if I catch the game, I'll tape the game. No, these people stop what they're doing when the World Cup is on. It is as important to them as their religion. That's how important the men's World Cup is worldwide.
Yeah.
The women's game, Kevin, will never be at that level of the men's. And I'm not saying that it's right, but it's fact. And again, I'll go back and say the women's team is 100 times better than the men. And I enjoy watching the women's team more than the men's team. And I'm probably more critical of the men's team than I am of the women's team.
Right.
Because I want them to be better. But they're not. So, again, like I said, I got to shut up because you and I could keep this going. You know, soccer's near and dear to my heart. And now this topic, you and I could probably talk till the sun goes down. But I'm going to turn it over to you. You can end the show.
Check us out on Twitter at YoungsterOldMan, Facebook.com/YoungsterOldMan. YoungsterOldMan.home.blog is our site. Thanks to Troy who updates that. Basically search Youngster Old Man and Talking Sports, and we do radio shows. We do, obviously, the Go Big or Go Home, which was more soccer-focused than Big Ten, obviously, like we said to start the show, as to why. But check us out if you like us, and if you don't, then let us know. On Twitter, on Facebook, search Youngster Old Man and on social media, and you'll find us. So I appreciate all the listeners. I appreciate you, Troy, bringing your soccer knowledge to this show. But we will see you all next week.